Good morning, everyone. It's wonderful to be in Bangalore. Lovely, clear skies. I come from Delhi, which is a smoggy, sky. You see a smoggy skyline when you sort of wake up every day in this time of the year. So it's great to be here. And thank you so much, Transformance, for inviting me to really give the opening remarks. Now, one of my favorite songs is a song called "The Wind of Change," by the Scorpions. And interestingly, the wind of change is right here today in front of us. Transforming HR technology, transforming all kinds of technologies which are related to learning as well. And why is really this transformation happening as far as HR tech and learning is concerned? There are several leaders today around the world who are saying that it's about employees first and customers second. Now, how many of you believe that it's employees first and customers second? It seems that we are in a minority, right? But why are people saying that? They're saying that because employee experience and customer experience are actually two sides of the same coin. And unless you have happy employees, you will never have satisfied customers, right? So let's really look at, so learning is actually the cornerstone, because learning plays a significant role as far as employee engagement is concerned, as far as employee performance is concerned, as far as the overall development of employees is concerned. So today I just wanted to pause and talk about three areas which I see as trends, which is transforming the entire learning and the related technology space in 2022 and beyond. And the first one really is that learning will now extend beyond the boundaries of what I call as traditional content, right? Now, in the last 2 years, we've seen a tremendous growth of digital content, right? I think there's the consumption of digital content. I recollect pre-pandemic days was less than 10%. And people were really crying out and saying that we're buying all these technologies and nobody's using them. But during the pandemic, we've seen a significant spike, and consumption has gone up to 30, 40, 50, 60%, based on the kind of industry and geography that you're actually based in. So what do I really mean by extending beyond the boundaries? Now, I was talking the other day to a global consulting firm who do a lot of work in the skilling space and in the learning space. And they actually said that there are two gaps that they see. One gap is that organizations today are not able to leverage internal expertise effectively. And let me give you an example of my own scenario. When I was running companies like Sage and Wolters Kluwer, and these are large multinationals and across several geographies, one of the big challenges that I faced was to find out the right people within the organization to connect with when I was faced with a certain business problem, right? And today we call this learning in the flow of work, right? But I'm trying to say that learning in the flow of work will start to go beyond mere content. And those days, for instance, if I were working on things like pricing models, distribution models, or trying to understand, how does, product packaging fit in to various market segments, then I would typically try and reach out to people that I knew within the system, who I met at various conferences that I attended internally, or I would reach out to some of my, global bosses who would use their connections and find me some people. Or perhaps I would browse the internet to actually find my solution. But imagine at a click of a mouse if I could reach out to those experts. So today we're going to be seeing, tomorrow we're going to be seeing platforms which are really going to be what we call as internal mentoring platforms, internal expert platforms, which are part of the entire learning experience. Because today we have some great platforms which are doing a lot of work as far as content curation is concerned. We've got companies like, ICOG out there. We've got global firms like Digread and Edcast who really have great algorithms which help understand what are skill gaps, how do we curate content, both free and paid, and how do we really accelerate an employee along their entire life cycle within the company. So really the first point was, creating these internal mentoring platforms, which is an extension to the entire learning journey, and therefore learning technologies will have to, have an algorithm which helps actually bringing experts together as well when you're faced with a problem. The second thing is, how do you actually practice this learning that you've done? People attend lots of courses, they get certified, but how do they really apply this? And actually it's important for employees to go beyond their KRAs to be able to do projects. And when they identify projects to either serve, to address either a business problem or to be able to or something to apply their learning, they often struggle to actually create collaborative teams. So the other significant trend that I see is internal gig platforms which are going to come up. We've seen external gig platforms, and gig work is big now worldwide, but we're going to start seeing internal gig platform, which is really going to be part of the entire learning experience, and learning technologies will start integrating with that as well. So clearly, learning is going to extend beyond what I call as traditional content. The other big area that I see happening is really this entire space of what we call as skills engines, skills taxonomies, competency frameworks, right? And that's really going to be the big thing, and that's really going to be part of a lot of learning technologies today. So what are actually skills? Let me just read out a definition of skill and a capability. Now, skill is really the capability of an individual to do something granular or small. And a capability is really a broader set of skills that come together to solve a business problem. So let me take an example, right? So let's take a role. A role is an enterprise salesperson, right? And one of the capabilities, and there are several capabilities that an enterprise salesperson needs to have, but one of the capabilities they need to have is negotiation, right? And that capability would require a set of skills. And what are those skills? Some of those skills could include listening, could include communication, pricing strategy, competitive research, and so on, right? So we're going to see a hierarchy where there are going to be roles, and roles are going to have a set of capabilities, and each capability is going to have a set of skills. And there's going to be an overlap of capabilities across roles and skills across capabilities. So it's going to be a big skills library. And there are libraries available today, which are available in the open market. There are libraries specific to industries and geographies and so on. And there are technologies which can incorporate these libraries for actually helping people in their learning journey. So there are different kinds of companies. There are learning, LXPs like Edcast and ICOG and Digread and so on. And interestingly, there are lots of players now in the recruitment space who have also gotten here. Companies like Eightfold and Gloat and so on as well. So this is going to be something very, very significant that's going to be happening, where typically skills engines and skills taxonomies are going to be part of the entire learning technology space. But this starts to get interesting when you start looking at future skills, right? So taking the same example of an enterprise salesperson, right? So how would the capabilities and skills of an enterprise salesperson, how has it changed in the last 2 years with a lot of digital transformation happening? So obviously they need to pick up a whole lot of new skills. So technologies now will have to understand, or rather there'll have to be a lot of human intervention to understand what are those new skills which are now required, given the changing business environment, and technology will have to enable it to really facilitate that learning journey. The other area is, what are future roles, right? So the other day I was speaking to a friend of mine who's a senior leader at a global IT services firm based in the US, And he said that, look, we are now looking at hiring what we call as full stack salespersons, right? We've all heard of full stack developers, but who is a full stack salesperson? I mean, they are obviously people who are agile, who are forward looking, who have great capability of growing into great sales roles. And interestingly, they are multi-skilled. They are people who can do sales development, they can do account management, they can do pre-sales, they can do sales operations. So they are people, and that's a new breed of salespeople that now highly evolved organizations are actually hiring. And in his view, going forward, they will be hiring more and more of these full stack salespeople as opposed to the traditional enterprise salesperson. So clearly, there's a lot of change in the capabilities and skills when you start looking at a new role of this kind, right? So skills engines will need to become far more adaptive and predictive, and learning platforms will really need to plug in that particular capability. And the third thing that I wanted to talk about really is something very, very practical, which I think will be a reality, because what people are now saying is, how does learning actually impact engagement and performance? I mean, it needs to impact a number of things, but engagement and performance are really key. And last night I was talking to an Indian, fast-growing Indian company in the employee engagement space. And when they were showing me a demo, one of the things that they showed was employees were actually talking about gaps in learning. So they actually have plugged in a learning system into the employee engagement platform. And this is just something which has just happened in the last 12 months. I mean, I remember when they started 4 or 5 years ago, they didn't even talk about it. So imagine how learning is clearly impacting engagement. So we've all heard about the Great Resignation. There's been a lot of talk about that. It's largely about very high attrition rates. People say up to 30% and so on. And many people say people are driven by money, and that's the reason why they're leaving. But the reality is that people are looking for growth, people are looking for development, and they're looking for career pathways and so on. And Josh Bersin has actually called it the Great Migration. He said it's not the Great Resignation, but it's the Great Migration, because people are migrating from companies that are not so great to actually greater companies if they have the opportunity. And learning really is the cornerstone for us to arrest that particular migration. Because really learning can help in that entire process of defining career pathways and employee growth. So I think, so definitely, if employees are engaged and they see a career path for themselves and they see enough growth, of course, money is always a factor, then the chances of them staying back would be a lot higher. And the other important thing to really look at is, how is learning impacting, one is engagement and the other is performance. So that's a reality check that organizations will have to do, because there is a hygiene factor of learning, which is the entire reskilling, upskilling, continuous skilling, and so on and so forth. But going forward, learning and learning technologies will be part of the entire HR ecosystem and will not really be standalone, which means that they will be integrated into engagement systems, into performance systems, and there will be metrics that will be defined, which will help organizations to actually understand what is the ROI that they're actually getting out of that. So those were 3 trends that I wanted to talk about. I would need another hour to talk about 10 more of them. But thank you so much for your patient listening, and I would be happy to engage with all of you on the sidelines of this event during the course of the day. Thank you very much, and welcome to this event.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas, for setting the base for the conference. May I request Mr. Ibrahim, the co-founder of ICOG, to come and facilitate Mr. Thomas.